I know that's the thing. Like you think you've arrived, right? Because you get this big accolade, and they are important, they're significant, but really there's no arriving.
Right.
There's just the hustle. There's the continual hustle, no matter what you've written in the past.
Welcome back to the Act One podcast. I'm your host, James Duke. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our podcast, don't forget to subscribe as well as leave us a good review. Our guest today is my good friend, novelist Carrie Arcos. Carrie is the author of 5 books, including her debut novel, Out of Reach, which was a finalist for the 2013 National Book Award. Her latest novel, Skywatchers, is a thrilling genre-bending mystery about the history of the Cold War and the UFO phenomenon. The book was recently optioned by a major production company to develop it into a feature film. If you're looking for a good book to read or to buy as a gift for the reader in your life, then be sure to check out any of Carrie's novels. You can read more about Carrie and her novels at her website, carriearcos.com. Enjoy our conversation. Carrie, thanks for joining me today. It's a real pleasure to finally get to talk to you. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yay, me too. Thank you, Jimmy, for asking me to do this.
Yeah, you are a fantastic writer. I want the world to know who you are. I want them to buy your books. So all 11 people who listen to this podcast will...
Yes, that is awesome. And that is why I'm here.
That's right. No, but seriously, I am very excited to let people who haven't already found your books yet and don't know about you to find out. So let's start where you are now, which is your latest book. So your latest book, Skywatchers, very fun book. Now, for a lot of people who don't know, Carrie writes what in the category of YA, right? Is that the category that your publisher? It's considered young adult, right?
Yeah, young adult, and that's an umbrella for usually, a teen protagonist, but underneath YA is every single genre you could imagine. But yeah, I write books for teens. I mean, they're for everyone, but when I'm writing them, I'm thinking of probably my inner teen self.
Your inner, yeah, little 17-year-old Carrie.
Yeah.
So Skywatchers just came out in August of this year. Congratulations on working so incredibly hard on a novel and releasing it in the middle of a pandemic. So congratulations on that.
Yes, that was the plan from the beginning.
Wait till there's a pandemic and then release this book.
Yeah, it's not a process I would recommend, but here we are.
That's had to have been a challenge. This is your fourth book?
Fifth book, yeah.
Fifth book. So, wow, that's so exciting. Congratulations on that. But that had to have been a challenge, right? To have released the other 4 books very differently, obviously. So you haven't been able to do the traditional bookstore book signings, things like that. How have you gone about promoting the book and selling the book? What's that been like, releasing the book?
Well, I don't know if I'm doing it very well, to be honest. It's so hard. I think I really try to focus on what I can control, which for me as the writer is trying to write the best book that I can possibly do at that moment, right? And focus there. And then when it comes to marketing and releasing it and all of that, of course, I have social media, and for this one, I did an Instagram live launch, which was fun. And, some interviews and blogs and things of that nature. But yeah, it was very difficult. And I know I'm not the only one in this boat, with everything being online and so much out there. It's always like, how do you get your stuff to rise above all the noise? and it can be difficult. But I'm focusing on the positive. I have a book out in a pandemic. That's amazing. And it's my first sci-fi book. I was always wanted to write science fiction. And so this is my first venture into that. So
It's
yay.
certainly a good time. It's certainly a good time. I don't know if it's a good time to release a book, but it's certainly a good time to read a book.
Yes. Reading is, yeah, I mean, book sales are going strong. And so, people are definitely reading. So yeah, it hasn't been, so I guess that's a good point. It hasn't been a terrible time to release a book. It's just so different under normal circumstances. So it's you're kind of going, I don't know if this is working, but I'm going to try this. And so there's a little more risk, but it's challenging, and it's exciting. And I'm just super grateful to have Skywatchers finally out there.
No, what is the typical process of releasing a book for you? So, this, pandemic excluded, you're with a pretty big publisher. You're with Penguin Random House, right? That's,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get bigger than that, can you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
So yeah, so but I also know that the economics of the book industry is kind of crazy, and it's not what everybody realizes. Like, you have the top tier writers, right? And then you have everybody else, or something
Right.
like that. Like, it's either Stephen King and the rest of you or something. But talk a little bit about, what is it like? What's the process of writing and releasing a book these days? What you go through a book tour, or what is that like?
Honestly, there's not really a lot of money to be made off of book tours with publishers, unless you're like a really big writer with a huge following already, that are going to be showing up, to book events. They still do book tours, but I think the days of, sending all these authors around the world and putting them up in the hotel, and it's not as, it definitely still happens, but it's not as like common, unless they pay. So if a publishing company pays a lot of money for your book, like, you'll hear about these, especially certain debuts that are, getting 6-figure deals and all of that. You better believe that the publishing company is going to be marketing that book. They're going to be taking out advertisements. They're going to be sending you on book tours, all of that. But if you're more maybe like me, where I'm probably what we call a mid-list author, and so I don't get all the fancy book tours. I definitely, go to bookstores. I've gone and done school visits. People have interviewed me for their websites. I've been interviewed by, Publishers Marketplace and all different, Kirkus has interviewed me. But unless your publishing company is going to put all this money behind the marketing of your book, there's really only so much I have found that you can do. There's been some books where I have been like social media crazy and like really contacting people, and like I've had a team, right, where we've had all this campaign going on. And then I've had a book where I've done hardly anything, and the results have kind of been the same as far as sales. So
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, and I don't know. I'm not sure what the magic formula is, but I do know
Oprah. The magic formula is
my
Oprah.
gosh, yes, that is what I need. I need Oprah to get back on my books, or Reese Witherspoon. She has a great book club that she just cranks them out.
But
anyway.
Excuse me. It is a interesting thing, though, right? Because you work so long and hard on this labor of love, creating something, and we at Act One, we typically are talking to filmmakers, and so they're trying to have their film watched by as many people as possible, and with you, it's different, right? The author experience is different because you're not going to sit in a theater and watch people experience what you created together. You're gonna, if you hear from anyone at all, you're gonna hear from them after the fact, right? They have read your book and they're gonna come up to you, or they're gonna send you an email, or maybe send you something on social media. And what I guess what the question I'm trying to get into is, what's the satisfaction for you in writing? It's got to be in the writing itself, right? Because you're not going to be able to get much satisfaction in knowing how people are responding to your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think it's both. I think the creative act of writing, I definitely feel like the need to do it. Not necessarily compulsive, and because I'm not super prolific, like you had brought up Stephen King before, he's like an animal. He's amazing.
He's on a whole nother plane of existence.
He's a whole other level. But as an artist, as someone, I think that's how I'm kind of engaging and making sense of the world and my experience. And so much of my life has been navigating story. Ever since I was little, I've always been drawn to story, and whether that be books, film, any kind of medium. And so I just think naturally there is that within me that enjoys that process. And I also enjoy the other side. Like, I enjoy hearing what people think about it. And if I can get people to have an emotional response, that's always the best. Like, last night I was in my book club, decided to read my book. And that's always kind of interesting because I just kind of have to be quiet as they discuss it. And then they ask me questions. But it was so cool because I made 3 of them cry, the book. And it was at a part where I didn't think it would. And
wow,
so
interesting.
I was like, that's the best compliment ever, that they felt so engaged with the characters and the story that it elicited that response. And so I love that. And I don't mind the bad reviews either, because, and I'll read them. Like, sometimes, I know they say don't ever read Goodreads reviews and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I'll read them, and sometimes I'll laugh, but sometimes I'll go, that is a good point. That could have been, I could have gone a different direction there, or whatever,
Well, two, I mean, like we said earlier, the category that you're in, YA, is there a more brutal audience than teenagers?
Well, it's the funny thing is a lot of adults are reading YA. So
yeah. Oh yeah, my wife does. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the negative, it comes from adults. But yeah, no, teenagers, that's what I love about them. They'll just tell you how they think. So it is fun for me to go and do author visits with high schools and hear. I mean, I've had some tough questions. I remember where I was like, "Ooh, ouch. Okay, we're going there."
What's the toughest? Can you think of like the toughest question you've had from a high school student that just really you were really impressed with and stumped by?
Impressed with. Well, the one I was thinking about was not impressed with, but he kind of went to a critical spot in his question right away. And he just asked, why I made a certain character so 2-dimensional. It was I was on an auditorium, like a stage, and I was like, whew, okay. And like, I just kind of teased him a little, like, for being, that was a really pointed, like, your first question out of the gate.
Yes,
but,
yes.
I mean, you're professional. I had to like answer it, and
yes. That's like, yeah, that'd be like starting your question to Stephen King with, look, I know you're terrible at endings, but let's talk about the ending.
Right.
Okay, so Carrie, I find this whole world that you're in fascinating because I can never be in it. You- but 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 it is. It's one of those things that I look at the life of an author and this kind of deep well that you draw from to create fascinating these fascinating journeys and these fascinating character studies. And let's just jump right into Skywatchers, which, so it just came out a couple months ago. And tell everyone a little bit about this book and well, first of all, what's the book about?
Okay, so it is set in 1952, and it follows a group of teenagers who are part of this program called Operation Skywatch that Harry S. Truman, our president at the time, instilled. It was actually continuing another program, but they changed the name to Skywatcher. And at this time, the country didn't have any radar, and they were very concerned about planes coming, from Russia or even China, and the atomic bomb happening. And so regular citizens would man these towers, or they would go up on their roofs and they would call in, they would look for planes and they would call them into these flight centers. And so Skywatchers is about a group of teens that are doing that one night. They're watching the skies and they see a UFO that looks like it lands behind them in the forest, and they go looking, and after that they're missing for days. And that's all I'll say what happened.
Well, bum bum bum.
Bum,
This is
bum,
where that's where I'll
bum.
play the very very cool. And you
Yeah.
where did this idea originate from? I know you get asked that probably in every single interview about this book, so I apologize for such unoriginal question, but I am curious, especially considering that you had said, and I want to talk a little bit about sci-fi with you because this is in comparison to your other books, this is the first sci-fi book that you've science fiction novel that you've written. But where did this idea kind of spring from for you?
So I've always loved UFO stories. And I mean, I'm definitely a child of the 80s. Spielberg, right? His imprint is on my life, for better or for worse. But I was reading this book called The Close Encounters Man, and it's about the guy who coined the phrase close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. And there's a fourth kind. But so it was kind of about his life, and like he was with Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, Project Sign before that. So he was with the government for many, many years. He was a great scientist. And there was a chapter in there where it brought up this idea of Operation Skywatch, and how like just regular civilians and housewives to school-age children would just be watching the skies. And of course, during that time, there was a huge uptick in UFO sightings because I think, after World War II, people realized, oh no, your lives could change in an instant. You could be totally destroyed by something coming down from the sky, right? We had the atomic bomb, we had nuclear, all of that. So anyway, I just kept thinking of that word Skywatcher, and I thought, oh, that'd be such a cool book, right? To have it be teenagers, and then my mind just went there. So that's where that and I think I do have that in the acknowledgments part of the book, but I wanted to. But yeah, that book is really great, Close Encounters. If any of your listeners are interested in the history of UFOs and our government and all of that, Close Encounters Man is a really great read. So that's where I got my initial idea.
And so once you get the initial idea, I want to kind of try to break this down because we have a lot of storytellers who listen to this. What was the idea? What was the initial idea? Kids finding a UFO, and then you added kids. How did you develop this story? Because and then that'll kind of lead me into the process of your writing, kind of your writing process a little bit. So the kernel of the idea was what? And then how did you begin to expand it?
So the kernel, that's a great question. I think the kernel was the word Skywatcher itself. And then And then from like, what does that even mean? I remember looking it up and realizing, oh, people who watch the skies are actually called sky watchers. Like there's a whole community of people. And
And
from
this
there,
was especially a big deal, prior to all the technology that we have now. They would literally just watch physically with their eyes, watch the skies.
yeah. But even now, groups that, have those huge telescopes in their backyard and they have conventions, like
Yeah.
it's a term that I just didn't know. But so yeah, that word. But then from there, I knew a group of teenagers, and so the kernel of the idea was that, yeah, they see a UFO. I went right to UFO. And then I was kind of like, well, where would I have this happen? So for me as a writer, place is huge, super significant. This setting for me is almost like, I guess, for lack of a better word, another character. So I spent a lot of time thinking about where would this take place, because I felt like that would inform everything else, like the type of people that are there. The topography was super important, because if I was going to have a UFO, I wanted it to be on the coast and by a forest. So I had to, so I literally,
That's very specific.
very specific. So I knew it wasn't inland. I was researching just California along the coast and trying to think of places that I've been. And the one I kept going back to is Monterey, that whole Monterey area.
Interesting.
And then kind of looking back, I knew I wanted it to take place not present day. I knew I wanted it to be in the 50s, because obviously I wanted it to be with the Skywatcher program. So Monterey looked very different back then. That there was more of a forest. Like a lot of it's been cleared now for housing and all of that. And then I looked at, well, who's in Monterey at that time. And it's interesting because books in the 50s, or movies in the 50s anyway, they kind of show the US as being, like everyone is like white suburbia, when you watch these old movies. It's like, wait a minute, it wasn't just white people living during that time, during the 50s. So, when I was looking into Monterey, I realized there was like a whole like Japanese community that was part of Monterey, significant
cool.
part. And it's also a large Latino community, that lives there. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. So it started to inform, an Italian, there's a lot of Italians are Sicilians. So that all started to inform who my characters were going to be.
And then once you felt like you had your characters, is that when you really feel like you have your book?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely focused on character. And it's probably because so much of my background, well, I've been a teacher for many, many years, college and high school, and is literary fiction. I've studied a lot of literary, and as people would say, maybe there's no plot in literary fiction. I disagree. But that has probably heavily influenced me. And then also, I just love when I get into a story. It's not, sure, I want it to be interesting, the plot, the action, the conflict that's happening. But all of that to me stems from character. If I don't care about these characters, who cares, So, so my challenge was for Skywatchers, because the genre is different for me. Could I write a novel where I'm still, strong on character, but also can I get the plot? Which the pacing of it has to move faster. In this genre, it's just different. It's not contemporary realistic, which is what I normally write. So that was my biggest challenge to myself, to see, hey, I want to see if I can do it. So.
Yeah. Your previous book, which came out in 2019, 2018, we are all that's left.
Yep.
I could make the argument that's probably your most plot heavy book, and yet it's not, right?
Yes, there's plot, there's action going on, but no, yeah, that's like, yes, that's a historical fiction set present day and then during the Bosnian War of the 90s. So two characters, two storylines that merge. But yeah, vignettes. Like I think also when the character from the Bosnian War, I think it could be argued there's definitely plot happening, but it's more in these like past these sequences of events, you know?
Yeah, they're you use the you use those vignettes, those plots to really help us get a just a deeper insight into those characters, into the daughter and the mother in particular. And um, we'll get to that book in just a second.
Well, and
But
Skywatchers is totally different, like the format, because I think I have about six characters, you know, that alternate, and they're all telling the same story, but each chapter you're getting kind of a different, more nuanced look at it because we're looking at it. But there's no going backwards. Everything's moving forwards.
yeah,
That was fun as a writer.
yeah, that was something that was different that I noticed with this book as with your other films. And that was kind of leading to my next question, which is this idea of writing voice, finding a voice. You do something very interesting in Skywatchers is you have six characters and you're telling the same story from the perspective of six different characters. And so you're really having to capture the voice. And I think my wife said it best. She said she felt like because we've been friends with you for so long, she knows your voice so well. And she said that this book, your voice completely disappeared to her. Like she found herself immersed in six new characters, six new friends, six new people to follow, which I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting the way she said that.
Yeah, and that was like the biggest compliment because I really tried hard to make these sound like different people. And it is, I will say, because it's in the third person, it's a little easier. I don't know if easier is the word, but a little bit of, it's not so intimate as the first person voice. So maybe it's easier to do that. Again, I don't know if I'm saying the right word, but I did consciously choose third person so I could try to create distinct voices too.
You mean for you as the writer or for us as the audience, as the reader?
Me as the writer. So when
Okay.
I was writing, like I didn't write, it's not six different voices where it's not like first person the whole way through. It's third person, but
Right, but it is six different perspectives, right?
yeah, right.
And so what was that like? Because that obviously you had to challenge yourself as you clearly set out to challenge yourself as a writer, right? Like you said, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge, and you took that challenge on. What was that like, having to dive into this story and tell this story through the perspective of six different characters?
I loved it. It was so great because I love the research aspect of writing. In fact, sometimes I'll spend too much time and I'm thinking I'm writing, but I'm just researching something over and over. So the challenge was, you know, I kept a notebook and a journal on each character and to make sure each character had an arc and how do they fit together and where's the conflict with each character, the nuance of the conflicts and all of that. So I loved it. I felt like, okay, I felt like I was ready for the challenge. I don't know if I could have written this as my first book. I feel like I had to write 4 books. Well,
Interesting.
actually others that I haven't, but that will never be published. So, but 4 published books to get to this book, to get the writing chops, I think, to get to this book.
And why is that? What for you as a writer makes that so challenging that you feel like I needed more time, I needed more experience?
I think some of it is confidence and understanding the process that I have now 5 books in. I understand my process a little more than that first book, you know? And I think the willingness to tell stories that go beyond even your own experience, if that makes sense. You know, I think that my first 4 stories are really grounded in though they're fiction, they're definitely things that I've experienced or gone through or was dealing with in some way. And this story, Skywatchers, is a complete departure from that. You know, I'm not from the 50s. I I have not been part of a Skywatcher club. I really had never seen a UFO. I have looked, but I have unfortunately not. And so, you know, and then to also step into other people's shoes that are so different from you, uh, which is, you know, takes a lot of empathy, I think, to do that. So I loved it.
I love that word empathy. I think you're dead on with that. The book is it's a fun read. It's a fast read. There is some fun little twists along the way, which is kind of interesting, you know. So people who
Tried.
maybe tried, yeah, I think people who are going in thinking they know exactly what they're getting might be pleasantly surprised that they're not exactly getting that story, but definitely if you're fans of Stranger Things or those kind of thing, I think it's a great read. The excuse me, probably of your 5 books, your previous one, I think probably is the most impacting. It's a really interesting, surprising take on a part of real history that I think that it surprises readers the way you approach this real moment in history, a very, you know, tragic part of history, and also because it's not a well told story in the Western world, right? So Westerners don't know this history very well, and so I'm talking about your your book, We Are All That's Left, if people want to pick it up, and tell them a little bit about the background of We Are All That's Left. What's the book about, and what was the impetus for that book?
Yeah, so We Are All That's Left tells the story of a mother and daughter story. They survive a terrorist bombing attack, present day in Rhode Island, fictional. And then it kind of splits from there and talks about the mother's experience as a during the Bosnian War in Sarajevo in the 90s. And when I was in college is when the Bosnian War was happening. And honestly, I don't remember much except, you know, them talking about some conflict, and I was just out of it or checked out, like, you know, a 20-year-old might be sometimes, right? I was in my own, well, no, I won't, nothing bad against being 20, but I was definitely focused on what I was doing and didn't understand the global politics, and it was so confusing. But then I joined, I helped resettle refugees and immigrants from all over the world after college in the Boston area. And I started meeting Bosnians, and I was just like, what happened? What was happening? And I just couldn't believe the atrocities I was hearing about and what they had gone through, and genocide. And I became good friends with a few of them. And that experience has always stayed with me. And I'm such an advocate for refugees today, in part from that. But I always wanted to maybe try to write about it, but I'm not Bosnian. So I was kind of like, well, should I even write about it? And how could I even do that? Like, I've never been to Bosnia and all of this, but it just kept with me. And I got this idea where I thought, okay, I could do it that way. I could approach it from that angle. And I actually went to Bosnia, went to Sarajevo, and went to the village where my character's from, and I toured around it and talked to people. And the woman who owned our Airbnb, she was amazing. She asked me what I was doing there, and I ended up telling her, and I was telling her about the story, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're writing my grandmother's story. And I was like, what?
Wow.
And because she had been in the war when she was a kid, this woman. Anyway, so she agreed to let me interview her, and she was such an amazing help. And even when I came back to the States, like, she read drafts of it and helped me with my Bosnian and those Bosnian scenes. Just the details that I didn't know. Like, I knew that they had basements and they survived in basements, but I was picturing, like, I grew up on the East Coast in New York and upstate, and I was picturing like the basement I had growing up, which you get into it through the house. But she was like, no, there's no basements through the house. You have to get in it through outside.
Like storm shelters, like Midwest storm shelters.
Yeah. So even just that little detail was so helpful. But anyway, I think she gave me the confidence to publish it because she read it and she just was in tears. And she said, I remember she said, I don't understand how you can know so well what we went through and what it was like. And so I think that's the empathy thing, right? I think as a writer, because like that's the best compliment. And anyone who's Bosnian who's read it, like they've sent me like emails or they'll write reviews of it. It's been positive. There hasn't been a single negative review from a Bosnian person, and that to me is like the biggest, like, okay, I got it right.
Yeah.
I tried to like honor them and that experience, and then also show that, it's really not that different from, because she was a teenager, and I tried to show like teenagers, yes, it was in the 90s, yes, it was in Bosnia, but it's really not that different from American teenagers, the stuff that she was going through and the pain, loss, and all of that. So
It's definitely, it's a very emotionally affecting book. And the Bosnian crisis is, kind of like what you're talking about, when you find your place, how it's almost like another character. It certainly does play like a character, but the two main characters, the mother and the daughter, I mean, it really is a mother-daughter story. And you, of course, you're a daughter, you have a daughter. Did you pull from that? Like, what was it in writing that book you were trying to say about mothers and daughters and their relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I have been very lucky I have a very close relationship with my mom. She's definitely like my best friend. And I think I take that for granted, how kind of rare that is. When I was starting to write this book, I was at like a writer's retreat for a couple of weeks and sitting around a table with a bunch of other women writers. And one night, mothers came up, and everyone at the table had like this horror story of them and their mom. And I remember sitting there like, wow. And then they got to me, and of course I'm like, my relationship's great, like, I was like the freak of the table. But yeah, they all just looked at me like they couldn't believe it. And I think that conversation really informed some of the direction of the book and their strained relationship, because I don't have that with my mom to explore. So to explore that one is kind of interesting. And then actually in Skywatcher, with one of the characters, Caroline, and her mom, there's a bit of that kind of dynamic happening, and of loss and healing that needs to happen in that relationship too. So yeah, I don't think it's a relationship I explore in all of my books, but definitely We Are All That's Left. That's that primary healing, right? How can you have healing after so much pain and trauma? And that book also explores the idea of trauma being passed through generations. Like, it affects our DNA. We know so much about trauma today, how it affects the body. So, can love really heal?
Your first book, Out of Reach, was a National Book Award finalist. What was it like? Here you are.
That will go on my tombstone.
Right. I mean, that was, I mean, I remember when it happened, and we were all so excited for you. It was just one of those Fantastic. What was it like for you to you become a published author for the first time? Oh, and by the way, you're a National Book Award finalist. What was that like?
I know it was very surreal. It was just, I didn't believe it. And I remember when the guy that used to be the president, it's a different president now, he called me. I had just finished teaching class at Biola, and he called me to tell me that I was chosen. And I was like, literally, my first words were, "For real?" Like, I wasn't even professional, nothing. It wasn't even on my radar that these awards even happened at this season and I could get a call. So it was a lot of fun. Stephen King was there at the dinner. He's a very tall man, going back to Stephen King. I did not know
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
So it felt like, oh my gosh, I was invited into this little exclusive club somehow, and nobody told them who I really was. I was there, and it was fun. I just tried to say, just enjoy it. And the advice I got from some writers that had, been before me, they were like, wow, Carrie, this is a very rare thing. And I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, because it was normal to me because was happening to me. But, you know, since I've been writing for a few years now, looking back, I realize how rare that was and what a gift. And, there's people, their whole careers who will never get that are, way more talented and amazing novelists than me. So I'm just very, very grateful for that experience.
Oh, you're being so humble. You're being so humble. It's a great thing. I
I mean, I'm not meaning to be humble, but it's true because, well, here's the other side, the flip side, I'll tell you this, is that the next year, because, when you've been nominated for that, you're kind of like, oh, okay, like maybe I'm in now, and maybe everything I write
every
is
year,
going to be
every year,
nominated.
every book is up for. Yep, that's right. And then
So,
and you're like, wait, how come I didn't get nominated?
yes, and then I got really down.
Oh
Like,
no.
because I was like, I knew about the award season. And so I'm paying attention and I'm waiting for the announcements, and then I'm not getting called. And I'm like, well, then the next year I don't get called again. The next year I don't get called. And I was like, wait a minute, maybe that was a one-time thing.
Now you know how Cuba Gooding Jr. feels.
Yes, I do. Oh my gosh, that guy. I know, that's the thing. Like, you think you've arrived, right? Because you get this big accolade, and they are important, they're significant, but really there's no arriving.
Right.
There's just the hustle. There's the continual hustle, no matter what you've written in the past.
I love it. That is the truth, right? That is the truth. It's all about the hustle. Would you say Out of Reach is your most personal book? It's about a complicated relation, among many things. It's about at its core, it's about a complicated relationship between a sister and a brother, between two siblings, and her attempts to try to save him, and the stuff that he's going through. Would you say that was your most personal novel?
Yeah, for sure. Because and this isn't like secret or anything, but I do have a younger brother who struggled with addiction, and specifically meth addiction, for many years. And I remember reading the book A Beautiful Boy had just come out. It was a really great book, but I found myself getting upset because I believe the author had two daughters or one daughter. And I remember thinking, like, gosh, so much of the family runs after the addict, and, you just get caught up in it because you're in so much pain, and all you want to do is save your kid, and but the other family members, especially the other kids, can kind of get lost in that themselves. And so I remember thinking specifically, I kind of know what that feels like, even though my brother's addiction was not when we were kids, it was when we were adults. But I just know some of those feelings of being that sibling and watching your sibling just make these choices and succumb to a disease. And so I thought, so I just started thinking about that, and I just started writing. I remember I wrote that whole first chapter with that idea of this girl being kind of in pain and not really knowing why at first. And then I was like, oh, it's her brother. And then it just all kind of clicked. So yeah, I would say it's very emotionally true, that book. The stuff that happened in there isn't my experience, but the emotional truth of that is very personal. Yeah.
That's really good.
Which I think, like, if you look at a lot of writers, it's probably their first book like that. Well, maybe not in sci-fi, but in contemporary fiction, literary fiction, a lot of times they'll find that it's probably pretty personal.
One of my friends has said filmmaking is therapy. Do you do you
Depends on the film.
well, for them, the making of
Yeah,
the film, the
the
creating of the
making of
film.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. For us as the audience, yeah, totally depends on them. But
Just
for them,
traumatic for us.
yeah, for them, the process of making the film, of creating the film, is therapy. What would you say that? Would you say something similar with your writing, the novels that you have written? Do they tend to come from a place that is within the deep wells of your soul, or and if so, how do you process what comes out of you? Like, how do you deal? Do you deal with it before you get it on the page? Do you get it on the page and then deal with it? What has that been like now, 5 novels in? And what do you feel like you've learned about yourself through writing these novels?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I don't even think I'm doing it consciously. It's very subconsciously. Like when I was writing my second book, There Will Come a Time. It was also another kind of brother sister book, but a brother dealing with the death of his sister, and it was all about grief. The whole book is about grief, and I was kind of like, oh, why am I writing this book about grief? And at that time, I didn't understand it, but looking back, one of our really good friends had committed suicide, and we were very much involved with him, and um, even in his attempts, phone calling us and things like that. So, and he finally, his last attempt worked. And I think that I was working through it. I didn't even realize I needed to, but I needed to through Mark and these other characters. So I think it's more of subconscious than intentional. And I will say, I think, and this, I go to this one school every year. They read all my books, and then they invite me to come out and have like this big like day long seminar thing, and they're awesome. And so the kids that have read all my books, they've said to me, they're like, you know what, Miss Arcos, you have a very consistent theme throughout your books. And I was like, oh no, what? Am I just being repetitive the whole time and I don't realize? But they said love. They said love always wins in your books. And that's like a strong like undercurrent, and which I think is so cool because I'm not necessarily even intentionally trying for that, but I think that is very true to my own life and what I believe and what I feel heals. And ultimately I think that comes from my relationship with God. These books are not Christian novels. Some of them tackle issues of faith and some don't, but the fact that love kind of informs me and is working itself out through these characters is very interesting.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Do you view your writing as like a kind of spiritual practice?
Yeah, I think that God is a creative being, and I think he instills us with his creativity. And I think part of who I am, uh, part of how I engage the world, is through story, and that's how I'm making meaning. And so I definitely think that there's a spiritual aspect to it. and, people have called it the muse or whatever you want to call it. But I don't necessarily believe in muses, but I do believe that my relationship with God informs, what I write and how. And I love the book Walking on Water by Madeline L'Engel. She says it a lot better. Just read that. Your listeners should read that book.
All right, we'll just read Madeline on.
It's profound. It's so good.
Do you find yourself as you look to create? Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself ever getting stuck in some way? And if so, how do you? And I'm not necessarily talking about writer's block. I mean, I know that's where most people go, but just creatively, maybe just in general. I mean, you could speak to writer's block if you want, but just, do you find yourself ever getting stuck? And if so, as a professional writer, what kind of practices have you put into your life to get yourself unstuck?
Yeah, no, I was really stuck creatively this year, actually, at this beginning of the year. And I think, I was taking on a lot, working 3 kids and outside church things, duties, and there wasn't much breath, right, for me to even just think and have fun being creative. And then the pandemic hit, and then I was like frozen. It was weird. I had a really hard time with focus. And I remember my husband was saying, this should be a great time for you as a writer, because you're basically isolated and you're just sitting here and you should just write for hours. And I was like, I hate you. It doesn't work that way. And then I started getting anxious about it. So that wasn't good. So it just created this. And I just kind of was like, you know what? You've been here before. You're going to be here again. You just got to write it out. And so for me, what that looks like is reading. I read a lot, and I read across genres. I read all kinds of books, and that's my way out a lot. And that's where I start thinking, and my creativity, I get excited, or even like watching kind of cool movies or TV shows that start to inspire me, or I'll start researching things I'll hear even in the news or whatever. I'll be like, oh, there's a huge crater in Iceland and they don't know what is that, and I'll start. And that is really what's helpful for me to get out of. And then just like the permission, like, you know what, you don't need to be writing every day, or you don't need to, like, yes, you do want to start getting back into it, but like, don't freak out. This is part of the process.
That's really interesting. I wonder, even combining the two things we just talked about there, I wonder if, we could actually look at it as curiosity being a good spiritual practice. Not just a good practice, but even a good spiritual practice. The idea of being not just curious, but even spiritually curious. Like, what is God doing? What is God saying to us? What paths can we follow to kind of better understand the world around us, the people around us, what God is trying to speak to us about? Would you say that is something that you would recommend, or something that you try to practice yourself?
Yes, for sure. We had friends that just got engaged, and, we were supposed to write like a little something to them. And I was like, and everyone always looks at me, you're the writer, you should be able to write something. And I never know what to say. But what came to my mind was stay curious, stay curious. So that was my advice to them for their marriage.
And it really does feel like we get too caught up sometimes in the rule following for writers. And I really kind of like what you're saying, which is, if you get stuck, let other art, let other inspiration unstuck you. Like let it do its job. Let it inspire you. Absorb the things around you.
And all kinds of things too. Like maybe you aren't such a sci-fi person, but try a sci-fi novel or a romance, or watch a period piece if you've never watched one,
Yeah.
and
If
yeah.
you're a beach person, maybe try going to the mountains for a couple of
Yes.
days. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Oh, environment. That's another thing. Yeah. I know it's been hard now because of the pandemic, and our rules are constantly changing. But yes, being outdoors is another big thing. And just like having space to just sit and not being worried about the words on the page. And I think that is hard, especially, if you're a working writer and you're just like, I got to get the pages, there'll be time, you do have to sit down, you do have to get to it, but just giving yourself the freedom, to get inspired. And yeah, the curiosity, I think for all of my books, I would say, I am asking a question or trying to answer a question, I'm trying to discover something, right? I don't ever approach it from, oh, here's what I need to say necessarily, or here's the answer I need to tell everyone in this book. So
yeah, every one of your books. That's interesting. I never looked at it from that framework, but you're right. From that framework, all 5 of your novels are asking a question, and setting them off on a very specific journey to try to solve that problem or answer that question. That's really good. So you are a mom. You're a wife. You're a mom. You're a teacher. What has it been like, being a published author while also being all these other things? Do you have any advice for someone who's listening to this and going, hey, I have a full-time job, I've got kids, how do I do this? I don't think it's possible.
well, it'll never be easy. There will never be a time where it's perfect. You will never have more time. So you have to be intentional and look at the time that you have and craft, and instead of being reactionary, decide, all right, this is my life. This is what I want, or this is what I don't want. And for me, when I was starting out, it looked like going to the coffee shop at 6:30 in the morning so that I could get an hour or 2 in. And then I would come home and take care of the kids. And honestly, for me, I don't need to be writing all day, right? And I don't know any writer that really writes like for 8 hours, like literally typing 8 hours. But if you can get a concentrated 1 hour, and I always say set small goals. Like for me as a writer, when I sit down, it's 1,000 words. That's just kind of my process. I need to get to 1,000 words, even if they're crappy words. If I get to 1,000, I feel good. I feel accomplished. I feel like I'm moving forward. Even if I edit them out later, just those 1,000 words. And sometimes that can take 2 hours. Sometimes that can take 30 minutes, but I count it as, okay, job done. And then sometimes I'm writing more than that, but I'm just saying in general, that's kind of my philosophy. Get people in your corner. My husband was a really big advocate for me and a really big help. And so were other friends. I think I told maybe 1 or 2 while I was writing. I didn't like shout to the rooftops. So I also didn't want the pressure of people asking me all the time, how's that writing going? And, when you're dying inside because you think it just sucks and you suck and you'll never write again. But yeah. And honestly, it's up to you, because like I was talking to someone the other day, a young artist, and it's like, nobody's begging me, Carrie, please write another book, please, nobody. So it's got to come from me and how much I really want it. And you got to fight for it. So I know some people that love to write in the middle of the night. Like I could never do that. I'm too exhausted by then. But if that's you, then maybe it's from 10 to 12 you're writing, and just that consistency. You will be surprised at how your brain even switches on and it's like, oh, this is my creative time. And consistency, discipline, the words nobody ever wants to hear, but they're true.
Carrie, this has been fantastic. I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful for you to give me some time to give us some time to talk today. And these are for, I want to make sure people get a chance to find your books. So your books are Out of Reach, There Will Come a Time, Crazy, Messy, Beautiful, We Are All That's Left, and your most recent book, Skywatchers, came out in August of this year. And they can pick up these books anywhere where great books are sold, right? Amazon and all good places.
Amazon, or they can support their local bookstore, and anywhere online. And yeah, thank you so much, Jimmy. It's been fun. It's been an honor to talk to you.
CarrieArcos.com, right? And they can follow you on social media and all that good stuff. Thank you, Carrie. I try to close every podcast by praying for my guests. Would you let me pray for you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this fantastic time today with my friend Carrie. God, we're just so grateful for her and who she is and her amazing giftings and talents that you've bestowed upon her. So grateful just for these fantastic novels that you have gifted her with. Thank you for her empathy in creating characters that care, that we care about. And God, I just pray you would continue to bless Carrie, bless her, bless her marriage, bless her relationship with her husband and with her kids and with everyone around her. God, I pray that you would give her more great stories to tell. You would fill her with just more interesting characters whose lives we can explore. And we just thank you for Carrie and who she is. We pray this in Jesus' name and your promises we stand. Amen. Thanks for listening to the Act One podcast, celebrating over 20 years as the premier training program for Christians in Hollywood. Act One is a Christian community of entertainment industry professionals who train and equip storytellers to create works of truth, goodness, and beauty. To financially support the mission of Act One or to learn more about our programs, visit us online at actoneprogram.com.